Tukatalks is the show where fashion industry experts share real-world knowledge gained through hands-on experience. Hosted by Ram Sareen, the founder of Tukatalks.
Greetings. Welcome to Tukatalks. Today, we are very excited to have one of the leading fashion consultants, Christine Daal. And she'll discuss what happens to fashion brands and how can they bounce back. What if there were things you could do right now that could set you up to be prosperous and profitable after this pandemic? In this seminar, we'll discuss marketing examples on how to make your brand stand out from the competition during this time, launch strategy options, 11 things you should be focusing on, key strategies in events, in e-commerce, and much more. With every obstacle comes opportunity. Now is not the time to panic, but it's the time to prosper. Help me welcome Christine Daal, my dear friend from New York.
Thank you, Ram, so much for having me. Hi, everyone. Hope you enjoy this talk that we're about to have here. It's so good to be here. Thanks again for having me.
Wonderful. So, as we said, there are so many challenges, not only for the big brands, the supply chain, the shipping companies, the fashion companies, the categories in fashion. There is so much going on that either you are going to take a strategic approach and fix things one by one without having to get overwhelmed with options or doubts. Tell us, and I will stop interrupting, what are the 11 things which we keep hearing from you?
Yeah, definitely. And I talk pretty fast, so I created a free cheat sheet for everyone to download. So you can go to fashionintowarrior.com/Tuka and download what we're going to talk about today in a nice little handy cheat sheet. But there are a lot of things that fashion brands can do to prosper after COVID if you set yourself up properly right now. And so a lot of those things obviously are geared towards the digital side of things. So if you haven't been selling online, I think by now you know you have to be. That's definitely a must. And so getting all of your digital stuff in order. So number one, working on your social media, right? If you've got Instagram, which is probably the most popular fashion social media platform out there for fashion brands, get that Instagram going, start building your following, start really engaging with your customers. It needs to be this two-way conversation. People want to feel that they're a part of something bigger, that they're a part of something that's valuable, that they're a part of something that aligns with their values and beliefs. And so start that conversation on your Instagram because it will later on lead to sales. Start influencer marketing. That's the second one, right? If you haven't been doing influencer marketing, if you've never considered it before, start doing it. If you were doing it before the pandemic, definitely up it now because influencer marketing is taking off. I've seen such an increase across the board with sales from influencer marketing. And so that can be a really great way to move product. If you are having trouble getting rid of inventory, selling your product online, stores have been canceling on you, right? So that's going to definitely help you. And then social media ads. If you haven't considered doing Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google shopping ads, now is the time definitely to do it. I read a statistic, I think 60% of major companies cut down their ad budget in 2020 due to COVID. That leaves more room for all the smaller brands to play because you're always bidding against all the bigger brands. So now is the time. If you haven't invested in social media advertising, now is definitely the time to do it. If you can afford to do it right now, I suggest at least preparing for when you can afford to do it, right? So that means preparing your copy, preparing all the images, what call to action you're going to use, what landing page you're going to send everyone to. Get all that stuff going. Open up your business ads manager account, right? Start looking to hire an ads person to help you. We do a lot of social media advertising for a lot of our clients. And so you can at least prepare now if the budget is not there. Get all that ready so that by the time the budget is there, you're ready to go. You can hire someone, you can fire those things up as soon as possible. And then, of course, number 4, that kind of falls under that digital category, is revamp your website, work on your social media, work on your SEO, right? Get some more traffic driving over to your website. Maybe you write some new blogs, maybe you update your about page, maybe you spend a little bit more time on your website because now you have the time to do that, right? So you really kind of get everything on brand, you get everything in order, you make sure your fonts are all matching, your colors are all matching, that you've got everything kind of on there ready to go, so that again, when COVID is over and those sales start coming back as normal, your website is ready to go and can handle everything. Especially check the back end. So check your cart process, make sure you've tested it, make sure there's no issues with checking out, make sure that it's not too long of a cart process. A lot of people have these long, drawn out cart processes. Nobody wants to go through like 6 pages to check out, right? It's like Amazon. We want it in one click and be done, right? So make sure all of that is really ready to go so that when the economy comes back and people are ready to buy, your website is new, improved, ready to go, and you're ready to get those sales. So obviously those kind of 4 all fall under the digital side of things, right? You want to make sure that your online presence is really, really there. Then moving into the next couple of ones are really about reviewing your strategy, right? What is your marketing strategy? Do you need to review your email marketing, your funnels, your messaging? Really important that you are communicating with customers right now. They want to hear from you. They want to feel like they're part of the brand. I think I read a statistics that brands that are doing good, or at least the consumer perceives that they're doing good, there's some kind of way they're giving back or helping the environment or so on and so forth. Consumers are more likely to purchase, 2 times more likely to purchase than a brand that's not doing good, right? So obviously, if you already have a great mission that you're behind, that's awesome, promote that. And if you don't, maybe you consider adding one, right, in order to kind of capitalize off of that. Review your launch strategy. If you are thinking about launching or getting ready to launch, you might have to rethink that, right? Because of everything going on. So maybe you have to launch later. I had one brand that literally it was a swimwear line. We were getting ready to launch last May, beginning of summer. COVID happened, messed everything up. He had to wait and launch in September. So obviously not an ideal time to launch a swimwear line, but we still made it happen. We still made the best of it, and he still launched his line, and we promoted it to Australia because in Australia it was obviously warmer there. When it's winter here, it's summer there. And so he just tapped into the Australian market a little bit more. Can you think about your launch strategy and possibly launch with a smaller line? Maybe you were planning to launch this huge collection and all your pieces aren't ready. You couldn't get stuff from the factory. Your fabrics got held up. Something happened. Can you just launch with a smaller line? Does it have to be the full line all ready to go all at once? Can you do drops and do a couple pieces once a month or every other week or something like that to kind of build excitement and so on and so forth? Can you pre-sell? That's also a really great way. If you can't afford your production, or maybe your manufacturer shut down, or now you have to look for a new one, or your manufacturer got hit with COVID and they're out of work right now. They're all recovering from COVID. Can you launch pre-sale and take your orders up front, take the money up front, and then produce at a later time when things are a little bit back to normal? Can you buy and resell wholesale items for the time being? Maybe you can't afford to do any production right now. You can't really afford to do your own line. Can you buy and resell other items? And I have a client that's doing exactly that right now. She had to put her whole line on hold. So she's buying and selling resale wholesale items on her website in the meantime until she can get things going with her own line. So there's a lot of different things you can do to reconfigure your launch strategy if you were planning to launch during this time. Also, really good idea to review your plan for manufacturing and have a backup plan for manufacturing. This is a time when really good relationships come into play. I literally had one of my fabric manufacturers call me up on the phone right before Italy was shutting down last year and tell me if my client wants his fabric, that we need to buy it now and pay in full, and he will ship it to us because it's literally first come, first serve. He's sending it out as fast as possible because Italy was planning to close. So it's a really good time to have good relationships with your manufacturers. You definitely want to think of them as your partner and think about how we can get through this together, right? You're having issues on your end, but they're also having issues on their end, right? So now it's not the time to like negotiate or go MIA on your factory or try to get cheaper prices or back out of your contracts. You really want to see your manufacturer as your business partner. And so it's really important that you try to figure out how you can all work on it together, right? Can you cut smaller batches? Can you do smaller batches more often, maybe instead of one large production run? Can you possibly, use leftover fabrics to make things like masks and scrunchies and headbands and things that are small that you can kind of repurpose and reuse your old fabrics? And definitely you want to make sure that you have a backup factory, because unfortunately a lot of factories have gone out of business and or are just down to like skeleton crews right now because people are out or there's a 25% capacity max in the factory. And so it's really important that you have options when it comes to manufacturing. You don't want to be locked into just one manufacturer. Then something happens, they all get COVID in the factory, they all shut down, you can't get your order in time, something happens. So you really want to have that backup plan. And then, of course, review your sales plan, your sales strategy. If you were selling to stores and now all of a sudden they tried canceling on you, can you have them maybe push back the order instead of canceling? Or can you call all of your sales reps and ask them to renegotiate some of the terms with the stores, right? Maybe you no longer offer net 30, or maybe you offer some kind of discount if the store pays with a credit card the same day the order is shipped, right? Can you do something to kind of salvage some of those orders that otherwise would be canceled? Can you approach some stores that possibly don't sell online? They only have a physical brick and mortar store and say, hey, we're offering an affiliate program. You can sell items online through our store and make a commission and do it that way so that they can also capitalize off of online sales, even though they don't have their own online platform. And if you've never considered having your own physical retail or brick and mortar store, now might be the time to do it, actually, because prices are so cheap for commercial space. I mean, especially here in New York City, it is crazy how many places went out of business, how many storefronts are empty right now. And so you could probably get actually a really good deal on rent if you did actually want to have your own brick and mortar store. So you might consider doing that as well. So you definitely want to review all of your strategies right now. That's really important, because if you spend the time doing that now, you're going to be much better off once COVID has gone away and things are hopefully back to normal. And then the last couple of things I always say is continue as normal. Continue doing what you've been doing, right? Continue sourcing. I know a lot of the trade shows aren't happening in person, but they're all happening virtually. And you can pretty much almost make a virtual appointment with anyone over Zoom to see fabrics and different things. And yes, I know it's not the same as physically being there and touching the fabrics yourself and feeling the weight and feeling the hand feel, but you can order swatches, you can get them delivered to you. So you can still continue sourcing. You can still continue sourcing manufacturers. We actually have a virtual manufacturing tour coming up on March 11th. We typically do them in person, but again, we pivoted due to COVID, and now we're doing them virtually. So that's pretty awesome. So you can still meet manufacturers, you can still get price quotes for your line, and you can still continue as normal. And then, of course, I always say, make sure that your mindset is right. That's always going to be super important. Right now, a lot of people are so fearful. And especially when COVID first came out, the fear factor was super, super high. And I felt like everyone was glued to their television, watching the news, seeing the numbers go up. Hopefully your fear has calmed down a little bit, because fear will only paralyze you. And I always say that you can either have fear or faith. They're both the same exact thing. Believing in something you do not know exists will actually come to fruition. Just one is positive and one is negative. So you might as well be positive, have faith, don't have fear. and make it a point to really get in the right mindset so that you can be set up for success. And then the last thing is to continue learning. I'm a big proponent of always be learning, always be growing, always be looking for new things, new technologies, what's out there, what is Tukatalks doing, what are all these other companies up to, what's on the horizon. Take online courses. We offer a ton of different online courses that you can learn and grow in all the different areas of business, whether it's development and sourcing and manufacturing, or on the digital marketing side of things, growing your website, growing your social media following, or if it's on the sales side of things with pitching to buyers, getting store, boutiques, and wholesalers to buy from you and that sort of thing. So always be learning, because what you learn now, you can start to apply, and you'll be so much better off once COVID is over. So those are the 11 things. And again, there is a free cheat sheet. You can download all of this. We'll put the link at the bottom.
What I call the rapid learning process.
Yes.
But thank you for at least giving a cheat sheet, a review sheet. If I was to recap a few takeaways: one, be positive. Be ready to pivot.
Yes.
We are going to continue to wear clothes. We may not wear the same category of clothes, like swimwear is during the summertime when everything is open. But one thing is for sure, it will open up. Because we're social animals. We like socializing. We like to wear the right things, feel good about us, and clothes make us do the same. The other thing that I really thought that you hit it very well is, if you are not a retailer or don't have a space or store, this may be the right time. It doesn't have to be New York City, around the globe. It doesn't have to be a clothing store that went out of business. It could be any store. The storefronts are available. Mm-hmm. Now, even the biggest e-commerce companies are trying to create omni-channel, where the store can play a role for people to come and touch and feel, or be measured, or try on the clothes. But once they have done that, they know their size of your garments and they can order then online. So
exactly.
That doesn't have to be in a very high traffic area with very high rents and expenses, but it could be, and this has been tested out and tried out by so many brands. Social media, absolutely. This is a new era. But one thing I want to add here is where I think most of us who are actually buying what we need rather than just impulse buying when we are in the stores and we see something on sale or looks good, may not fit right. And this is one of the reasons why 80 to 90% of our closets are filled with garbage we bought. Either it didn't fit or didn't look right, but it seemed like a great deal at that time.
Exactly.
The new generation is not like that. They will buy what they need. They will pay the right price. They don't have to be concerned about any other thing about brand, label. The product should look good. It should be made ethically, and it should fit me. Hence, the demand manufacturing business model has taken off. A lot of people ask me, I'm a very large company. How can I pivot? I'm a very large factory. How can I pivot to be a small, one-of-a-kind garments? Mm-hmm. So here's my tip from the manufacturing side. All of us have sample rooms. All of us are used to developing products, especially in California, where most of the smaller companies, and I mean smaller companies, who are selling 300 to 480 to 600 garments of a style, are used to going to the market week, 11 market weeks in a year. And we carry anywhere from 300 to 1,000 new styles every month. Number one, we're conditioned to make small quantities, but we're also conditioned to develop 500 new governments to take 300 eventually with us. That means we've got the infrastructure. What if I was to put that infrastructure to make what I've just sold and just ship that? So my sample room could be my micro factory, could be my business model, but could be only my micro factory. And I can scale that by creating more sample rooms. Maybe a sample room to make 2-3 categories. The second thing which I liked what you said, rather than having this extensive line and wait for it, create smaller lines.
Yep.
Be a specialist. A restaurant with a very elaborated menu is not 100% guaranteed great food. It's just great choices. But a restaurant with 4 items or 6 items is a specialist.
Yes.
That is always going to stay in business because that's what we specialize in. So find yourself a place, make a small line, and concentrate on that. But always, always, always find the right timing. Timing is everything, okay? Any advice for startups?
Yeah, my advice for startups who are thinking about getting started right now and haven't launched yet, I would say get your ducks in order and wait as long as possible to launch. I think a lot of people are rushing to launch, and there's no need to rush because we're still dealing with the pandemic. We're still dealing with COVID. So make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row. Make sure you've got this beautiful website. Make sure you've got traffic coming to your website. Make sure you have a huge social media following. Make sure you've got that email list built up before you launch. That way you get sales day one. That's always my goal with all of my startups is I want you to launch your website and get sales day one of your launch, not launch the website and hear crickets, because that's going to make you very depressed. And so in order to do that, you've got to have your traffic numbers up. It's always a numbers game. That's what I tell people. It's all about the numbers. How many social media followers do you have? What's your monthly website traffic? How many people are on your email list? If you give me those 3 numbers, I can predict how many sales you're going to get every single month.
Absolutely.
So it's really important that you wait and really launch right and do it properly, rather than trying to rush and throw a line together. And then you don't even have the traffic there to support all this time and effort that you've spent creating the line.
I have a couple of questions. All we hear is negative, who went out of business, who shut down. This is depressing. And I really want you to give us a little bit of cheer. There's always a positive side.
Yeah.
In one of your seminars, you mentioned be positive, be positive. So help me make people positive. Give me some positive news of brands and retailers who really did well and why.
Yeah, definitely. I always say out of every obstacle comes opportunity. You just have to be in the right place at the right time and be very strategic about it. And there are a lot of brands that, yes, went out of business, a lot of stores that closed, that went bankrupt, and a lot of horrible things that happened in the fashion industry due to COVID. But there's also a lot of brands that are thriving right now, that are doing very, very well. And I think there's a lot of commonalities between them that startups and other fashion brands can really learn from. And so the first one, kind of obvious, I think everyone that kind of pivoted and focused on loungewear did very well, since we're all working from home. We're all kind of hanging out in our sweats and our PJs all day long. Any brand that either was already in loungewear or pivoted to loungewear. I know 2 that were very successful. Entire World, they literally sent out an email in March at the beginning of the pandemic, and they sold 1,000 pairs of sweatpants off of that one email that went out in March, which was pretty amazing. And then Knix, which is typically a underwear lingerie type company, they pivoted into loungewear, and they're doing pretty well with their loungewear right now. So obviously any company that was, again, already in loungewear or pivoted to loungewear did very well. Obviously, I don't think that's going to continue forever, but as long as most people are working from home, there's definitely going to want to be comfy. We all don't want to wear anything that we don't have to, especially if you're doing Zoom meetings. You only have to look good from here up, right? So you can kind of wear whatever you want on the bottom. And I think even when things do continue and go back to quote unquote normal, that people will still want to wear comfier options of what they were previously wearing. So loungewear, it's kind of an obvious one. The second one that I think people kind of forgot about is anything that's essential, like children's wear. I have a client right now, she is killing it with her children's wear brand. And people forget that kids grow pretty fast. So it's not like adults where you remain the same size. Kids are constantly growing. And so you constantly need to buy clothing for them. It's kind of not an option. It's not like I just want to buy clothing for my kids. I actually need to because they're outgrowing things. And so she has a very booming children's wear business. Her price points are very affordable. It's like $30 to $40 retail. So it is very affordable. But kids are definitely a demographic that you're going to need to buy clothing for them. It's not just a want. It's not just a luxury item or an impulse buy. It's okay, they've outgrown everything they're wearing. We need some more clothes at this time. And then the third one I've noticed is anything with political statements or any brand that is out there making a political statement. And I think we saw a lot of political tensions, racial tensions in our country, definitely in 2020. And the whole Black Lives Matter movement really surfaced again in a big way. And so two brands that are capitalizing off of that, one is Telfar Clemens, who has this notable shopping bag that's been quoted as being the AKA Bushwick Birkin. He's a Black-owned business, and he's really targeting Black and people of color who have always kind of felt like they didn't fit into the fashion industry and they weren't part of the elite white crowd that could afford, a high-end bag like a traditional Birkin. So he created this shopping tote and it took off in 2020. I don't even think you can get one now. It's completely sold out on his website. And he made a killing off of that tote. And then another company, Brandon Blackwood, also has a bag. And he's been doing bags for a long time that typically said his name on them. And he pivoted last year to create one that said "End Systemic Racism." And it took off like crazy. Kim Kardashian posted it on her Instagram and different things. And now again, it's completely sold out. I think he's bringing it back one last time in April, and then he's going to be completely done with it. So anything that has to do with making a political statement, obviously the whole Black Lives Matter movement. There's also been a big push just to, even for retailers, there's the 15% pledge that they're asking a lot of retailers to take, where they match the amount of population of Black people in the United States to the amount of Black-owned businesses that are represented in their stores. And so a lot of retailers are jumping on board that bandwagon. And so I think anything that you can do that makes a really big political statement can definitely help your brand to take off. And then one that I think people are forgetting about is secondhand fashion. And that's really started to take off even more. I mean, it was taking off even before the pandemic happened. You have all these companies like The RealReal and ThredUp and Poshmark, where you can buy and sell stuff like from your own closet. But I think it's really taken to another level because of the pandemic. And now we're seeing even major department stores getting on board, which I think it's kind of for them a tug at a last hope before they go bankrupt kind of a thing. But hey, they're trying, and I don't blame them for at least trying. I know Macy's is one of them that's trying to do a resale section or secondhand clothing section inside their stores along with the new clothing. I don't know how well it's going to do, of course, but there's definitely been a resurgence of this secondhand fashion, and it's growing 21 times faster than the sales of new clothing. And I think a large part of that is also because people are becoming more aware of the environment, right? We're all aware that fashion is probably the number 2 pollutant in the entire world. And so we're trying to be more conscious about what we're buying, what types of fabric is it made out of, where did it come from? And of course, if you can buy something that was pre-worn or pre-loved, that helps the environment and make the garment last a little bit longer, right? So I always loved thrift shopping when I was a young girl, and now I love the fact that you can literally do it online, and it's like 10 times better. So I think that's really awesome. And then, of course, convenience will always be there. I think Amazon has grown tremendously throughout this whole time. I don't know how many employees they've hired due to COVID and the surgence in online orders, but they're expanding as well. They're getting now into the luxury market because a lot of luxury brands didn't do well due to COVID. And so Amazon's looking at that as, let's take that piece of the pie, whatever we can grab. And so they're getting into luxury now, which is pretty shocking. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do well. So there's a lot of brands that are thriving during this time. And I think it's just a matter of being in the right place at the right time, pivoting, being willing to adapt. If you've been doing things the same way for 5 years, 10 years, and you've never adapted, that's not a good sign. You definitely want to try to adapt as much as possible and change and pivot and be aware of what your customers really want, what matters to them at the end of the day. Are they socially conscious? Are they, into what's going on politically and all the racial tensions that's happening? Who are you really targeting at the end of the day, and what's going to pull on their heartstrings to get them to buy from you? So those are some of the things I've noticed for sure that are helping brands thrive.
No, you're 100% correct. We don't know which way is it going to be in normal. But we know one thing, the change that we are seeing is so rapidly being adapted by so many people. Some for their social conscious, some for the environment concerns, some for the restrictions of travel, some for whatever reason. But one thing is for sure, that for ages we've had certain thing called garage sale. If those of you who live in North America will be aware of this Sunday rituals of driving through before the internet and all the things to see from the streets, people have garage sales. We used to say somebody's garbage is somebody's treasure. Okay,
exactly.
So I don't need it, maybe somebody else is, and give me a little bit of whatever compensation price. The person who really, really, really did amazing job in a meaningful, measurable results is Real. First year, they broke $1 billion transactions. Why? Because there were too many rich people who had too many toys, had no idea what to do with them, or they wore it once, they didn't want to be seen in wearing that dress again. They could afford to clean up the closet. Well, COVID made a lot of people clean up their closets because they are home all day.
Exactly.
So now this new tier of people or new tier of businesses that came up, it's all right, send me your clothes and I'll tell you what it's worth. And you know what? You can get either the coupons to buy something from me or buy it from a related store. So now there's a network. In 2018, in one of my speeches in Bangladesh, which was producing number 2 exporting country in the world, my theme was that we will be producing 40% less garments by 2023. And I wasn't just predicting based on my gut feeling. It was based on the data, the graphs that you see. We're producing way more on an annual basis and reducing prices in the selling. And some of these garments don't even make it to the stores. They just go straight to the landfills. Well, COVID rushed that process. And we all had to find ways to now do things responsibly, what we need. And the younger generation is the one who's going to define what should be the future of retail. So those of you who are waiting for the good old days to come back, no. Those days were for that time, for that era. It's time to pivot. It's time to think forward. And sometimes you've got to go back to your roots and say, maybe we need to bring that vintage thing back. Volkswagen brought the vintage cars back. So many of them, even the TV industry, some shows were doing phenomenal. Let's bring it back. Movies, remake. Fashion industry is no different. Growing up in India, I remember people used to come bringing in the basket full utensils. You could buy a pan or a pot and give old clothing. That was a barter system. That system never died. It just took another shape.
Exactly.
So think on those things. Sometimes looking back can give you more ideas than coming up with something new, okay? As far as the influencers are concerned, the categories are concerned, there's one category of product which did absolutely phenomenal. Nothing can beat as far as the growth rate of a category, that is makeup. Face makeup did amazingly well because most of the people are, whether socially or for business, they are in front of the screen. They want to look good. Those who were what I call the influencers, they've taken a new height. One of our clients prior to COVID-19, she had an amazing face makeup business where her face was the influence. She was a Hollywood makeup artist who put her makeup line and showed how to really apply that makeup to look so gorgeous and beautiful. And she built herself a multi-million dollar business all through social media. And then a year and a half, 2 years later, she decided she wants to put in the loungewear, the hoodies, the t-shirts, the stuff that we wear just going to the gym or lounging around. But she wanted to model it on herself. Considering that we are going to go into digital clothing, digital development, she requested that we make her a digital replica of her so she could make digital clothing, put the digital clothing on her body, and be her own influencer of her own clothes.
Very cool.
You've got to worry about looking at one, rather than trying to sell 60,000 garments to Walmart or somebody. That thing will happen, but not in every category.
Yes.
The real profitability will come where customer has paid you on the e-commerce before you could sometimes even make it. So in this business, where payments were always terms and this and that, e-commerce allows you to get financed by your own customers. Just have the right product. Just have the right infrastructure. Just have the right focus, and you can do it. You don't have to be very large company with a large budget and so on. You can do it with one product at a time. You can do it with one idea at a time. That's what the idea is.
Yeah. And if you pre-sell, you're basically getting your customers to pay you up front so that you can fund your production. So it's a great business model.
I have a customer here in California who makes jeans. 24-year-old. All he has is the pre-washed denim fabric. Rest everything is made only when the customer pays off. Zero markdown, zero inventory loss, zero loss of anything, okay? It's made to measure, made to order. And that's exactly what the business model is. Yeah. Young people can get started with either outsourcing or doing it right. But those were the days when we used to cut it, sew it, put it in the warehouse, then show it. Whatever sells, whatever doesn't sell, we throw it or clear it. Those days are gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not sustainable and it's ruining our planet. So we can't sustain with that.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, I want to thank you one more time for being so candid and so valuable for a lot of people.
Thank you so much,
Have
Ram.
a wonderful
Thank
life.
you, Tukatalks.
Thank you, darling.
Love being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Watch full episodes and clips at tukatalk.com/Tukatalks or listen on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the Tukatalks YouTube channel and follow Tukatalks on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.